Hello everyone, I'm your educator Anjali and I'm going to take UPSC Pledge series on environment on Arpita Sharma classes. Stay tuned with me as we will cover some important topics in environment in a total of 4 classes. You can subscribe to Arpita Sharma classes to never miss an update. Please do press the bell icon. You can download the PDF of this lecture from our Telegram channel Simplifying UPSC with Ease. The link of the same is given in the description box. The topics for today are energy flow in the ecosystem, biodiversity, importance of biodiversity. So, let us first start with energy flow in the ecosystem. Now we have to know, where does this energy come from? What is the ultimate source of our energy? It is the sun. We get our energy from the sun, and this energy that we get from the sun is converted into the normal energy or the energy that we can take in by the plants. Plants will convert this energy into the energy like how we can take them. Plants will not use the entire solar radiation, that is from the gamma rays to the radio waves. They will use only the visible light, that is known as the photosynthetic adaptive radiation, PAR, and they will prepare their own food by photosynthesis. Now, we know where is the source of our energy. Now let us see how this energy will flow in our ecosystem. As we all know, there are different trophic levels in our ecosystem. First is the producers, consumers, and then comes the higher level consumers. Now there is solar energy. As I told you, this is the photosynthetic adaptive radiation that this plant is going to consume, and it is going to prepare food, and this in the form of leaves or fruits is eaten by the first level of animals, that is herbivores or the primary consumers, and these primary consumers are then eaten by the secondary consumers, which can be carnivores, the smaller carnivores, and these animals, the secondary consumers, are eaten by the tertiary consumers, or they are also known as the large carnivorous animals. So these levels are known as the trophic levels. Producers, consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers is known as the trophic levels. And energy will flow from one trophic level to another trophic level. In detail, how this will flow, how much flows, let us see in the next coming slides. Now, when you say that the energy is transferred from one animal to another, there will be different forms of transfer, and you can broadly classify these transfers into the grazing food chain and the detritus food chain. Now, how will you tell if a food chain is a grazing food chain, and how will you tell if it is a detritus food chain? If you will see the source of how the food is, the source of the food, that is the initial part. If this is a fresh one, then you will say it is a grazing food chain. If it is a dried one or a dead one, you can call it a detritus food chain. Now, in a grazing food chain, the normal plant or a plant that will produce flowers or fruits is eaten by a caterpillar, and this caterpillar is in turn eaten by the frog. Frog is in turn eaten by the snake, and snake is in turn eaten by the owl. And this is known as the grazing food chain. This is a very simple representation of a food chain. Now let's see what is a detritus food chain. This is a detritus food chain. The dead leaves are eaten by the woodlouse. Woodlouse is then eaten by a black bird. This is a simple detritus food chain. Now, let us get into one step ahead and see what is a food web. This is a food web. Well, while food chain told you that a bird could eat only a woodlouse, here it will also, this food web will show you if that woodlouse is not present, what will the bird eat? Or in simple words, I'll tell you. Here the grazing food chain is telling you snake will eat only the frog. Okay, and here indirectly it means that if this frog is not found, snake will not have food, right? So let's see what will the snake do if there is no frog. So to understand this, we have to go one step ahead to learn about food web. Now there is a green plant. Green plant need not always be eaten by a rabbit or a goat. It can also be eaten by a mouse, and this mouse will be eaten either by an owl or it can be eaten by a snake. and this snake will in turn be eaten by a eagle or a vulture, and this rabbit can in turn be eaten by a jackal or in turn be eaten by a wild cat, and this wild cat can be eaten by a lion. Lion can eat this jackal or it can also eat this wild cat. So it is giving you many options. The food web gives you many options. That is, if one food is not present for you, you can eat something else. Like if you don't have chapati, you will eat rice. So animals also should have that option. That is going to be shown in the food web. Now, the complex between the two is that the complex one is food web, because food web is going to have interconnected food chains. Now, let us see what is food chain and food web is going to show us. See, when this snake cannot find this mouse, it will eat a frog. So the snake is somewhere going to survive if it is going to eat a frog. So food web is giving it so many options that if you don't have this, you eat this, you are going to survive. So it is giving more chances of survival for the animal, whereas chances of survival in case of food chain is less. And it will be more stable. That is, the snake will know that if it does not find a mouse, it will find a frog for itself. So this arrangement is more stable when compared to the food chain, which gives only very few options for an animal. And there is, I have told you that it will definitely find a food, so it is always stable, and in case of food chain it is always unstable. Now, how do the animals interact with each other? So this can be studied under biological interactions. Consider there are two animals. There are two animals here, and these two animals are competing for the same grass that is here. And you can see these two animals will eat half grass. This animal will eat half grass. The food is not enough for both the animals. So the two species are eating the same food, and it is not enough for both of them. There is shortage for both of them, so both of them are going to suffer. So it is minus minus, and this kind of interaction is known as competition. What is symbiosis? Symbiosis can also be called as commensalism. Okay, what is commensalism is one animal, it is known as mutualism, not commensalism, it is known as mutualism. That is, both the animals are going to get benefited. That is, you can take a typical example of a coral. In coral, you know that there is a coral, and in coral there is a zooplankton that is surviving inside it. The zooplankton or the algae that is surviving inside it. So this algae is going to provide food for this coral, and this coral is in turn going to provide shelter for the algae. So see, there is algae and there is coral. This coral is going to provide shelter to this algae, and this algae is going to provide food for this coral in turn. So both are getting benefited mutually. So it is plus plus, and this kind of interaction is known as symbiosis or mutualism. And what is neutralism? Neutralism is both are not benefited. Two species that interact will not affect each other at all. That is, they are independent of each other. That is known as neutralism. Now, what is parasitism and what is predation? To see on top, or when you view at these two words, they seem to be the same. But parasitism is different from predation. Parasitism, like I'll give you an example to understand parasitism. Parasitism is like the ticks that are there in the dog, the small insects that you find on the dog's body, or the liver fluke that is present inside the liver, or the lice that is present on the head of human beings. Because of this, the one person, the lice on the, you consider there is lice on human head, it is going to suck blood, so it is getting benefited, but the human is in under loss. So this is that. And this kind of interaction is known as parasitism, where one person is affected and one person is benefited and other person is affected. What is predation? It is also the same, where one person is affected and one person is benefited. The example of predation is tiger and a deer. Now the tiger will hunt the deer, whereas the tiger is benefited because it is getting food, the deer is losing its life, so it is under loss. That is known as predation. Predation need not be one animal hunting the another. Simple example of a sparrow that is eating a seed is also known as predation itself. And what is commensalism? Commensalism is where one animal is benefited and other animal is neither benefited nor it is harmed. Example, there are barnacles on the back of a whale, and these will use the whale to swim for longer distances or into deeper waters, but because they are present on the back of the whale is unaffected. And another example is the orchid that will grow on a mango plant. There is a mango plant and there is an orchid that is growing. If it is growing or not growing, it is not going to affect the mango plant. So this is also known as commensalism, because this orchid that is growing, it is going to get that strength, or it is going to get the support from the mango plant, but it is getting benefited. This orchid is getting benefited, but the mango plant has no such benefits from the orchid that is growing on it. And what is amensalism? Amensalism is where one animal is neither benefited nor harmed, whereas one more animal is harmed. Example is a black walnut, okay, or a tree. And there you consider there is a big tree over here and there is a smaller plant that is growing under this. Because there is shade because of this tree, and because of the shade it is not getting proper sunlight, this plant is not getting proper sunlight, and this growth is stunted, or this plant will not grow. See, this tree is neither affected nor it is harmed. See, it is neither affected nor harmed, but this plant which is growing under the shade of this tree is harmed. See, minus. So this is known as amensalism. Now let us look at something called as the biological pyramids. There are three types of pyramids: pyramid of numbers, pyramid of energy, and pyramid of biomass. Now, what is pyramid of numbers? It is a graphical representation. Okay, this is, now you are representing in the type of a graph itself. It will show you how many individuals are present at each trophic level. Numbers it is. Okay, simply straightforward it is. It will show you the numbers. Now, there are producers over here. There are consumers over here, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. Now you are going to count how many are there, and this is one of the disadvantage of pyramid of numbers, because you cannot count how many are there as this trophic level, because these are bigger animals you will count. What about the smallest of the animals? You cannot count. So that is one of the disadvantage of pyramid of numbers. Now this is upright, as I have shown you. Upright means it is like this. It is inverted means it is like this. Now this is upright in a grassland ecosystem. It is inverted in a parasitic food chain. Okay, because see, there is one tree. On this one single tree there are many birds that are there, and on these birds, on each of these birds there can be many ticks, parasites that can be present, and on these parasites and on these parasites there can be many other smaller bacteria, everything that can be present, the smaller ones than these parasites. So this is inverted. Okay, this pyramid of numbers can be upright or it can also be inverted. Second pyramid is pyramid of biomass. What is biomass? It is the amount of living or organic matter that is present at the particular environment. That is, you are going to calculate the total dry weight that is present in the ecosystem or the environment that you are going to consider. Now when you consider a normal ecosystem, that is the land ecosystem, it will always be upright, because the plants will be more in number, and herbivores that are eating these plants will be lesser, and carnivores will be more lesser, and top carnivores will be even more lesser. But it will be inverted in an aquatic ecosystem, because you see that producers are very few in number, that is the small plants or the small fish, because this biomass you are considering, mass of these is very less. Mass of these is very less. And then there is herbivores animals that will be present, which will feed on these consumers. Even then these are very small fish, these are again small fish. And then even the biomass of these considered, now you consider there is a whale over here, that is the top carnivore. The mass of this whale itself, one whale itself will be equal to, not one whale itself, half of that weight of that whale will be equal to maybe all the producers you can take in that ocean. So it is always inverted in case of the aquatic ecosystem. It is upright in case of a grassland, it is in case of a land ecosystem. Okay. And there is pyramid of energy. Pyramid of energy is how much energy is transferred from one trophic level to the next trophic level. And here you have to know there is a 10% rule. That is, if this producer is eating 100%, if it is eating food and getting 100% energy, and to the next trophic level only 10% of this 100 will be, 10% of 100 is what? 10% only. 10% of energy only will be sent to the next trophic level. And to the next trophic level another 10% of 10%, that is 1%. 1% will be transferred to the next trophic level, and to the next trophic level 10% of this 1%, that is 0.1% of energy only will be transferred to the next trophic level. And energy, pyramid of energy is always upright, because you are telling that from one trophic level to the next there will be only 10% of transfer, so it can never be upright. It can never be inverted, it is always upright. Pyramid of energy. Remember the law of 10% energy transfer. So with this we have completed the energy flow in the ecosystem. Now let's see what is biodiversity. To see what is biodiversity, there are many definitions that are given in various books, but let us consider one typical or one standard definition that is given by the Convention on Biological Diversity. The variability among living organisms from all sources, including among others terrestrial, marine and other aquatic ecosystems and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between the species and between the ecosystems also. This definition is very much simple and straightforward. Since it is quoted by the Convention on Biological Diversity, this can be used as a standard definition. Next, see, biodiversity, India is having only 2.4% of the world's land area. That is, if the land area of the world is 100 kilometers, India is having only 2.4 kilometers of this area. But in this 2.4 kilometers itself, it is having 8.1% of the biodiversity. So this is very much like, see, it is only, consider it is approximately 2%. So this is approximately 8%. It is not double, it is 4 times. Okay, so this is something that we have to appreciate. This includes 45,500 recorded species of plants. We have approximately 45,000 recorded plants and 91,000 type of animals. There is diversity in ecological habitats like forest, grassland, wetlands, coastal areas, marine ecosystems and desert ecosystems. So India is very much diverse, and you can see example, this forest itself in India, there are desert forests, there is rainforest, deciduous forest, grasslands, etc. So the diversity in the ecosystem or in the biodiversity is also greater for India. Now there is 3 levels of biodiversity, that is at the genetic diversity, species diversity and ecosystem diversity. Now what is this genetic diversity? Now genetic means it is at the gene level. There is variation at the gene level of the same species. For example, you take a human being. All human beings are not of same height, they are not of same weight. There is changes in their genetic diversity, there is changes in their genetic makeup. So this is known as the genetic diversity. What is species diversity? The diversity that is present between the species. That is, a man is not same as a dog is not same as a lion. So there is species diversity, and there is ecosystem diversity. That is, a rainforest is not same as a desert is not same as a grassland, etc. And these are the 3 types of biodiversity, and with simple examples this is how it can be understood. how do you measure the biodiversity? There are two ways how you can measure biodiversity. One is the species richness and other is the species evenness. What is species richness and evenness? The species richness here you can see in A. Okay, species evenness you can see here in B. What is species richness? That is different types of species. Different species are present. See, there are 1, 2, 3 different types of species that is present. So this is having higher species richness. This ecosystem is having higher species richness because there are different types of species that is present is known as species richness. So there is species evenness here. You can see same type of species, how many are there? 3 and 4. 4 are there. And other type of species there are 4. And this is species evenness. If there is a statement saying, what if there is low species evenness? What does low species evenness indicate? That is, if there is low species evenness, see. Now these 3 are not present, only this 1 is present and these 4 are present. So there is low species evenness according to this, right? And what does this indicate? This indicates that there is one species that is dominating this ecosystem. So this low species evenness will tell you that one species is dominating the area or that ecosystem. What is the importance of biodiversity? And before this, there is one smaller topic that we have to discuss in case of species richness. There is alpha diversity, there is beta diversity, and there is gamma diversity. Okay, so I need an empty slide. Okay, here we can discuss. So this is an ecosystem you consider or a habitat, and there are species over here. Okay, there is difference between the organisms that are there. There is difference between the organisms that are there, that is known as alpha diversity. And between the communities, see, this is one community and this is one community. The difference between these two communities, if it is there, that is known as beta diversity. And this is a community, I told you. Between this community and between this community, whatever a difference is present, that is known as gamma diversity. See, inside this community, there are different animals that is found, and the difference between them is called as alpha diversity. And these are two communities, and difference between these two is beta diversity. And there are two communities here. This is one community, this is one habitat, or this is one habitat, and difference between these two is gamma diversity. So what is the importance of biodiversity? Why is biodiversity so important? So we are trying to protect it, because biodiversity gives us so many services. Okay, it will give us so many benefits. So we have to protect biodiversity. Like protection of water resources will be done by it. It will maintain the hydrological cycles. It will regulate and it will stabilize the runoff of water. It will act as a buffer against the extreme events like floods and droughts. So this ecosystem is going to provide us the protection of water resources. And then there will be pollution control. It will help in the conservation of soil. It will help in the nutrient and minerals or the moisture that is present in the soil can be retained, okay, because of the ecosystem. Soil protection will be there. Okay, the same thing, the erosion of the soil can be avoided, and there will be pollution control. Like pollution control, I told you, see, if there are more trees and plants, they will absorb these carbon dioxide excess whatever is there, and they will reduce to some extent the carbon dioxide that is present in the atmosphere. So they are controlling the pollution. So if you are destroying this ecosystem, you will have to do something to control this pollution. When the nature is doing it for free for us, why should we destroy them? So this is the importance of biodiversity. There is nutrient cycling and there is storage, and this will help in the ecosystem performing many functions, because this natural processes are all done by the biodiversity itself. Then biological resources are provided by the ecosystem. That is, it will give us food in types of fruits, vegetables, etc. It will give us food. It is giving us fabrics like cotton, jute, etc. And it is giving us medicines, different types of medicines that we can get from the nature. And fuel wood we are getting in the type of wood, dry wood, To make furniture, we are getting wood from the atmosphere. And ornamental plant species also we are getting, like we can, what are ornamental plant species? That you keep them for ornamental purpose at home, breeding material for crop improvement, and for future resources also it is useful. Biosystem also, biosphere also provides us, or the what you call the, I'm so sorry, just give me a second. Biodiversity also provides us recreational activities. Okay, people like watching birds. That's why we go to wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, and bird sanctuaries, national parks, and wildlife sanctuaries. That's why we go there to watch the birds. And there is also cultural values. For example, see, you're having a tulsi plant at home, and you are considering it very sacred, and you are worshipping it. That is the cultural values. We are going to preserve cultural values if we preserve the biodiversity. And it is providing recreational activities like forest, wildlife, national parks, sanctuaries are the prime spots of tourism. And photography, wildlife photography, painting, the film making will happen in the forest and in the nature that is present. Literary works take place because of biodiversity, and bird watchers are the main people who get the overall experience of this very very much. So we have come to the end of this lecture. Please find the PDF in our Telegram channel. Thank you.